Hello, people. I am Lee Cole 3, and today I'm here with my partner James Proctor, and we are gonna have a show with James, and it's gonna be kind of interesting. Believe it or not, it's on Sammy Gravano, but I think it's some good stuff. And James, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing really good. Hope everything's going well.
Very well. And
Yep.
just so people know, tomorrow at midnight, tomorrow Saturday at midnight on our other channel will be linked underneath here, Wrestling with the Devil. We're going to have a midnight wrestling show. It's if you're a wrestling fan or even a UFC fan or anything, and it's going to be a cash giveaway, two cash giveaways tomorrow night. So that's at midnight. The link will be under here, but you must be subbed to the channel in order to be eligible to win a prize. Okay, and that's on our other channel. Also, Angel Gotti, if you go to if you want to join our Patreon, you can go to Angel Gotti. First of all, go to Patreon and put in Angel Gotti, and her show will pop up, and then all you got to do is go in there and subscribe to it. And the first week is free if you want to try it that way, and just see if you like it. What do you have to lose? Um, and besides that, that's it. All that. James, is there anything else you need to announce before we get going?
No, I think we're ready to do the show.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So Mikey Scars had an interesting show yesterday, right? And
Yeah, he did.
he was, and it's on his Patreon, just so people know. Explain what he was talking about, because Sammy's kind of hypocritical here, and we're going to catch Sammy in a lie, and we're going to put up evidence why Sammy is full of it.
Yeah.
Just say, explain what he was talking about.
Yeah, just very quickly, what happened was that about a year ago, Sammy had done a video where he put in this hypothetical situation of if he was upset with Huck and Fat Sal, but specifically Huck because they wanted to take him out. This was back when Sammy was in Arizona, right before he got hit by the feds for ecstasy. And so, anyway, in the video, he's saying that he's wants to do all these violent things to Huck because he had the audacity to want to do a hit and do a hit in front of his family. And so that wasn't the case. That's not exactly how that went down. And second, Sammy the Gravano was involved in at least 19 hits,
Uh,
and we have
yeah, and we'll get
scenes
into
where
that.
he
Yeah.
did it.
So okay. What you're saying is Sammy Gravano is kind of being kind of hypocritical because he's saying that they wanted to murder him in Arizona in front of his family, and it
Hmm.
was supposed to be in front of his business. That was the original plan. And
Yeah.
he said that's something that's usually not done in the mob. First of all, we know that's a lie. We know we've heard of
Yeah.
plenty of hits in front of houses. Bobby Borriello was killed right in front of right in front of his house, right in front of his car, uh, feet from his door. We can name plenty of people. So, but
Hmm.
this is what Sammy does. And Sammy, now let's talk about Sammy. Was first, let's talk. We got this one right here. Sammy was involved in a murder. Why don't you explain this and where this man was killed? This is a man that was shot in Astoria, and his name was Frank Oliveri. Why don't you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So Frank Oliveri was actually an associate of the Gambino family, and he was doing drug deals with the Cherry Hill Gambinos. And so he got into an argument with one of the cousins of John Gambino. His name was Giuseppe Gambino, and guy gets attacked. So the Cherry Hill Gambinos are upset, so they go to John Gotti and say they want the guy taken out. And
One minute,
this,
James. So he attacked somebody from the Cherry Hill gang. Is that correct?
hmm
Is or
yes,
do
he
you know
did.
who it was?
Yeah, so it was a guy named Giuseppe Gambino was attacked by this guy Oliveri.
And was he related to any of the actual Gambinos or anything?
Yes, he was a cousin of the Cherry Hill Gambino skipper John Gambino. And so John Gambino is related. He's on the Sicilian side, and he's related to the Carlos Gambino, not real close, but they do share the same name and they are related distantly.
Okay. And so what happened at this point? Now that we know where these connections are.
Yeah. So, this was in February of 1988. And so then in April of 1988, you've got Sammy the Bull Gravano that gets the hit. And so Gravano puts together a hit team, and they end up going to Oliveri's apartment there in Astoria, and they're staking him out. The guy every morning will move his car. It's something to do with the way the apartment complex is, and cars, have to be in certain spots. But anyway, he makes a move every morning, so they're waiting for him, and they end up getting him one morning in front of his apartment. And his family is right there in the apartment and hear and see what happened.
And the window of the apartment was overlooking where the hit was done. A matter
Yes,
of fact,
exactly.
after so they literally heard the shots and they seen him gunned down in front of their house. So that's
Yes.
house number one. So that's pretty much house number one that Sammy killed somebody in front of, and he ordered the hit to be there. He was in charge of this hit crew. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's in charge of it. If you listen on our thing, he's talking about using walkie-talkies and makes it in that dramatic way that Sammy likes to do. So, yep, he was running the whole thing.
Okay, and something, people. This is why we like watching and listening to Mikey Scars, because he points things out, and then we could do some deeper research on it. And I'm sure that Mikey knows this stuff. But we just do some deeper research, pull up the articles, and we prove Sammy to be a liar. So this is lie number one. Okay, so let's take this down. Did Sammy ever kill anybody else in front of their home? Sammy, once again, put together a hit squad. And did he kill this next person, Garofalo, that we're talking about, that was murdered in front of his home? Why don't you explain how that went down?
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Garofalo, that was another hit where basically they got a hit team together. They had the crash cars, and it's actually in towards dusk, and they do it right in front of the guy's house, and that's related to Sammy Gravano and his cousin, brother-in-law, Eddie Garofalo. So
yeah, and Eddie Garofalo was his cousin was cousin Eddie, and we finally figured that one out, cousin Eddie, and
and we did a show on that.
Yeah, on both of them. So
and that was again in front of the house, in front. People saw what happened, and Sammy was the one. He kind of was behind that. So
then you have Sammy throw these little hissy fits. Now that crew that went down to kill him, and it didn't work out too well. The crew that went down to kill Sammy, they never got there. There was a lot of money spent before they even got there. There's a whole lot of things. But matter of fact, they got caught in a snowstorm outside of Amarillo. This hit squad, and they had no hotel to stay in, and they had to stay at a shelter while the snowstorm was going on.
Yeah,
this wasn't exactly a hit team from that. It wasn't a Sammy Gravano hit team. Let's put it that way.
Right. It was Huck. Yeah, it was Huck mostly with Fat Sal. Fat Sal was this MacGyver type character. He was someone that I believe was in the military in his past, but he was a gadget guy. He knew how to build bombs and that type of stuff. And so they went there twice. So they went there in December before I believe it was 99. They went in December, and then they went again in January. And so in December they went, and they were there till around Christmas. They decided to go back. Talking about the two of them, Fat Sal and Huck, decided to go back because they weren't able to get a good beat on Sammy, and so they went back in January. And now this time they get into a situation where the hotel that they're staying at, there happens to be an FBI convention going on at the same time. So so they're pretty, it just wasn't going to work. And, they end up getting a bunch of weapons. They actually hit them out in Las Vegas. So they go to Arizona and then end up in Las Vegas, but then they head back to New York. So it sounds like that you might recreate that trip yourself, but not involve the
And if
violence.
anybody that knows this is Southwest Texas that I live in, 30 miles from here is Amarillo. And if anybody knows, January and February is no guarantee for nice weather in this area. It's very unpredictable, and we do get snowstorms. This is not like South Texas. This is not Houston.
No.
This is not San Antonio. This is a whole different ball game up here. Texas is the size of 3 states put together. So you're literally going from we're right here where I am. We're like an hour and a half, 2 hours from Colorado border. So everybody knows how much snow Colorado gets, and we're next to Oklahoma. This is the Panhandle. The Panhandle has some of the most unpredictable weather, and these guys are coming down to make a hit, and
they're not used to it, Yeah.
And it's funny.
No, they're not used to it because they're there. I'm sorry. I'm just saying it's just funny because they're not used to it. There are a couple of Yankees that are down in the South trying to maneuver in weather they weren't expecting.
And you know what I hear? If someone told me close to this, and I'm not going to say who, that there was like $75,000 spent during the time they were trying to plan this hit. And I said to the person, so what do you think they were doing? They were probably hitting every tapas bar in Arizona. They even had a reason to go to Las Vegas, and they were given like this money to search for Sammy, and it never. It sounded like they should have been part of the Columbos at that time. Because the Columbos were known for botching a lot of stuff.
Right. It was almost like that. But you know how they were able to get the information was that they were still friends with Karen Gravano. They were friends with Deborah Gravano, the wife, and who, they got divorced. And so the thing is, they realized that that the company name he used, Marathon, as his company in Arizona. Well, talking about Sammy, but Marathon was also a name of the company he used in New York. And what he did, he just put the company in his ex-wife's name. And so, they were able to track it down because, based on, Huck's wife was still talking with Deborah Gravano. And so they were able to find it out where they were at pretty easily.
So they weren't really looking too hard for Sammy, were they?
I don't think so. I think they might have been scared because they kept on talking about how the thing they were concerned about, they were thinking, well, the guy might be armed, which he probably was, or had access to guns. And so, they weren't, they didn't want to take him out in front of his house was what the thing was. They were wanting to get him at his building where he worked. And if that didn't work, they also were looking at a pizza place that his son Gerard owned. And so that was an option. And then the third option was, when you remember Sammy talks about that they wanted to make this device, this weird mechanical gun or something like a MAC-10 that was a machine gun that would fire on its own or whatever. Well, what the plan was is they wanted to set that up in a trail behind the home of Sammy Gravano, where he would ride horses because he had a lot of property, a lot of land, desert land, and there was some trees. And so they were wanting to hit him on one of the trails, but it never got that close to actually happening. They did 2 reconnaissance trips, and, it doesn't seem like they really were trying that hard.
They did 2 reconnaissance trips, but they somehow wind up in Las Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
Texas, Arizona, Las Vegas, they were doing the full circle there. And there's a lot of entertainment you can give yourself in those 3 states. It's just kind of funny because, let's face it, the reality is this. All they had to do was walk down there, sit across the street, wait for him to come out, and because there's plenty of surveillance pictures of him walking in front of his business. At that time, he was involved with the drug stuff. And they pretty much didn't know it, Huck and they didn't know it. And So he was very out in the open. They didn't have to come up with these extravagant plans like whoever heard of them, like the mob putting guns at automatic. That sounds like a good movie. That
No,
sounds
that's
like
not how you do it. Yeah, that was
yeah.
Fat Sal. Fat Sal wasn't a killer though. He never killed. Huck had, but Fat Sal. It's just very, very strange. But at the end of the day, they had done 2 reconnaissance trips, and they were planning on going back for a third one, and then Sammy gets picked up. So I just don't think they really were trying that hard, and I think maybe they were a little afraid of Sammy. But Sammy also was hanging out at the coffee shops, talking to college students and all of that, and bragging about what he did when he was a Gambino. So he was way out there, and he'd done the article in the Arizona newspaper. So he wasn't trying to hide either.
So if Cardiglio was out of jail or something and they sent him down, it ain't going to be like no making special guns or anything. It's going to be you're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and you figure at that time with some of the killers that were around that they would have set down some guys that were really killers,
Yeah, exactly.
or even go to another family.
Yeah, and that's the thing because he knew both Fat Sal and he knew, of course, knew Huck. So, yeah, I mean, Sammy would have known him as well.
Do you think that maybe that's why Peter Gotti got kind of was left on because of the fact that certain things like this would be put together under his watch? Because this wind up putting Peter Gotti in prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, it did, and Fat Sal ended up flipping, and then Huck took his punishment, as a man. But yeah, I mean, Peter did too. But the it just seemed to be a caper. It just was it's like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. It just was doomed from the start, and so it
You
wasn't
know,
that close.
you know the mistake they made. They
What's
should
that?
have given John A. They should have given John A. Like the contract. He would have been down there.
Yeah.
He would have gotten down there in 20 minutes. He would have taken him out. He would have taken that whole drug crew out, and John A. Lake
Hmm.
would have got back. See, when you have somebody you could like A. Light you could reach out to, that's what they should have done. What do you think?
Oh
Okay.
well, I mean, I
I hope people aren't watching this saying, "Are you
I don't want
serious?"
to
No,
say.
no, I'm not serious. Okay, so being that we're doing this on Sammy, we got one other thing. Sammy is an actor. Did you see? He has this wonderful show out called The Salvatore. It's a movie,
Hmm.
and let me see. I'm gonna try to put this trailer up, but there's a little swearing in it, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna leave it up too long. If I hear anything that Sammy does has a swearing in it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is supposed to be the official trailer for The Salvatore. And I'm gonna want you to see the beginning of this, and let's
Let me
see.
tell you guys a fucking story.
Oh, right away he's starting to swear. God Almighty. Okay,
Hmm.
Deborah's Way. Okay, so 1 second. I'm sorry. Now, Deborah's Way. Why is his stuff under the names Deborah Way?
That's to protect his assets. So he's putting it under his ex-wife's name, Deborah. And so that's a common mob thing. They do that. And so it's to protect assets. So they won't go after, he had the Son of Sam law. You remember the book Underboss, where he lost several $100,000 to victims. It wasn't lost, but he had to give up money that was made off that book. And so he decided he would start putting everything in the company and names of his ex-wife, Deborah.
Okay, so I'm going to play this a little bit more. Okay, and I'm going to show people how twisted this thing is and how twisted Sammy Gravano's mind still is to this day.
Every killer has a rhythm, a plan.
You still got it?
I agree with you. It's just business. I just got out of prison. Most of my money was gone. My family was killed. My life was upside down.
Sammy the Bull Gravano's family found dead in their home.
Think about what he's saying here. He's saying that his family was killed. His family's alive. This is Sammy Gravano. This is how demented he is. He's saying that does this make sense why he would do something and say his family's dead? Use his real
this
name?
isn't it's weird, but he's trying to do an alternate reality where, he's in this alternate reality after he gets out of prison. He's this mafia, or he's still, I guess the FBI still uses him for hire, and his family gets killed. So it's just a twisted, weird thing.
It's weird because he supposedly was concerned about his family coming to harm. His family's alive, and who would even talk that way about their family? This is,
I couldn't do that.
We were a part of the witness protection program. One that would all
Take a look at these.
I try to pull away from my life. I try to change my life. Maybe I can't. Maybe this is exactly what God wants me to be. A fucking hunter.
Okay, so you got him. You got him. He's out of prison. He's saying in this. What's the name of the serial killer in this?
Yeah, it's Roy DeMeo. So he's going after DeMeo.
But he uses a different first name than Roy, I believe.
Yeah, it's a different first name, but it's based upon Roy DeMeo, and it uses the DeMeo last name. Yeah.
Okay, and and there's a gruesome scene in one of it where they showed a woman being hung by this thing's going up and it hangs the woman. It's really twisted stuff, and the acting is so bad. And then I see all these people underneath it that write, Sammy, you should get an Oscar. You're brilliant. I'm like, huh?
I mean, that's just weird to me. That's even worse than the movie, and so it reminds me a little bit of the '70s style grindhouse exploitation movies.
I like you better.
See, that's the part. That's the part I don't like. See, this is a woman, an innocent victim woman that they're showing in this. Yeah. It's kind of disturbing. And, I can think of ways that, if you want to come out and make something like that, you don't have to make it so disturbing. I don't know whose idea. Now, his original producer, James Carroll, was his name Carroll?
Yeah, that was his original. Yeah, he's not involved in this at all.
I can't see him wanting anything to do with something like this.
No.
So
I mean, that's the problem. It's horrible.
And this thing was made 2 years ago. It was so bad that they took it back, and now they're putting it out again. So do you see a Grammy coming? Not a Grammy. I'm sorry. Do you see an Oscar coming?
Oscar? No, not at all. No. But what I see is that supposedly what's happened. Well, maybe that one of those. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it's just, I think, what's bad is I think that this version of it is actually like a re-edited version of the original, the Salvatore series that he did. So it's like a remake because there was a lot of mistakes in it and still bad.
So they still re-edit it. It's bad because his acting is horrible for one. And then the scene, the guy that's playing the serial killer, he's so weird and creepy, and it's just something real creepy. And I just wanted to give a little review of that because hey, it's Sammy Gravano Day, and why not? We haven't talked about him in about a month, so I figured we could. He put stuff out there, and for once again, let's in closing talk about the fact that Mikey Scars called them out about people being gangsters being murdered in front of their homes. If I remember correctly, they tried to kill Scarpo in front of his home.
Hmm.
And that's what started that whole war big time. That's what really pushed it off. There have been many gangsters. Willie Boy Johnson was killed walking out of his house.
Yep, that's true too.
So that's a myth. That's just a myth about, if you're going to catch if you got a contract out on somebody, and if you're going to catch them anywhere, it's going home. And sometimes when these guys go home to be home, they kind of let their guard down. That's what happened to Bobby Borelli. Yeah. Someone pulled up on him. The two cops found him, and then he got pulled up on when Gas Pipe planned a murder, and they murdered him right in front of his house.
Yep, that's exactly Sammy, what happened.
Yeah, and Sammy, it's just BS. It's not a mob tradition not to kill people in front of the house. Their tradition was wherever they can get you, they're going to get you. And try to avoid innocent victims. But unfortunately, many times victims of people being murdered heard the shots outside and looked out the window and seen the body laying there.
Yeah, exactly. Dozens of times, I'm sure.
People, please subscribe, hit the like button and the reminder bell. Thank you very much. And if you don't, like I said, tomorrow night at midnight on Wrestling with the Devil, we are going to have a show. A wrestling show. I hope to see you there. And we're going to have all the links underneath this video when it's done. James, anything to go say before we get out of here?
Yeah, so just one last thing. So speaking of Sammy the Bull and his Our Thing TV, it's just noticed that Sammy has finally released the interview he did with Dom Shikali back in February of this year. And so there is a trailer that's out on it. And so my plan is to actually do a review and look at the interview that he did with Dominic Shikali, and maybe we'll do a show over it.
And so far, the thing that he put out on that interview was killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy's 78 years old. Let's just face it. There's no remorse inside his soul. When he leaves this earth, there's not going to be any remorse inside his soul.
No.
And people, if you go to Angel Gotti, and that's my father's daughter on Patreon, and if you want to join there, you can. And we put up 2 more interviews, and we're working on a 3rd one tonight. So we're putting up lots of content over there, and it's well worth the price. Okay, whatever, everybody, please take care, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.